ASEA. Guys, tonight we have two very special guests and two doctors, as a matter of fact. We have Dr. Lee Osler from Washington State, and we have Dr. William Williams. We're going to say Dr. Bill Williams. So I'm going to refer to them as Dr. Bill and Dr. Lee. You guys, thanks for being with us tonight. I know you guys have incredible backgrounds. Dr. Lee, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about your background, and really after that, give us an idea of how you ended up here, how you discovered this stuff we call ASEA.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you and to share the platform with others here, especially my good friend Dr. Bill, who we'll talk about in just a minute. But my background is I'm a general dentist. I practice in the state of Washington, south of Spokane, a couple hours. And so I know there's a good group of our colleagues up there working. And I came into this because of my wife. She had an incredible experience where some of her health history is she's had a couple of tumors removed doing some cranial-based surgery, and probably spent 30 years in some tough health situation. And and her physician directed me, said, I think you need to get her onto some redox signaling molecules. And this was last year. I didn't really understand what that meant. And so I did a lot of research and found people like Dr. Maureen Hayes, who helped me understand and explain it to myself as well as to my wife. And we began that with her and had an incredible experience with her inside of probably 20 or 30 hours. It was within a day and a half. She just kind of woke up and was ever since kind of been a new person. 2 weeks after that event, I wound up at a science meeting, the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health, which is the other part of my background. I'm a past president of that organization, sat on the board for 5 years, and really helped get it established and get a foothold in this country. And prior to the meeting, I decided to do a little more research because I'm not involved in the meeting itself anymore. And so I got online to figure out who's speaking and who the exhibitors were so I wouldn't look foolish showing up at the meeting unprepared, I guess. And I saw that ASEA had an exhibitor's booth there and that we were joined with the American College for the Advancement of Medicine folks. Dr. Avi Hershowitz, who's a cardiologist and stem cell person in San Francisco, is going to be there. And so I wound up going there and learned a lot about redox biochemistry, learned about cellular health, the gut detoxification, and really the dots connected, the lights went on in my mind, and I suddenly understood the science side of it and why it mattered, both in the general health sense as well as in an oral sense. And we dentists, we have a particular fondness for wanting to understand the science as well as most physicians do, and so it's been an interesting discovery of jumping into PubMed, which is the science library, if you will, for everything health and wellness, and discovering almost just short of 20,000 articles have been written and published relating to redox biochemistry. And so that's when I reached out to Dr. Bill, my good friend of 20, 30 years ago, and introduced him. And he's been a part of AOSH as well. Again, AOSH is the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. And I was on the program committee and even invited him one year to come speak to us because he has some incredible business skills of how to market health and how to help educate patients. So that's kind of a quick flyover.
Fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. Wow, I want to hear more about that in a second. But let's introduce Dr. Bill Williams. Dr. Williams, wow, I've heard great things about you, and I know you've done amazing things in your life. Tell us a little bit about your background. And I know it was Dr. Lee that told you about this opportunity, this product. Give us an idea of how that came about.
Thank you, William. I'm glad to. My career started in 1975 as a dentist, and I've been practicing here in Atlanta, Georgia area that whole time. And I found that over the period of time, I was drawn to study the oral systemic connection, the action of the periodontal tissues and their inflammation and all that related to the body. And so Lee and I have been together in study clubs for many years. We've met every 6 months for 10 years in a row in one particular study club. And then we got together at the AISH organization that he helped found. And I learned a lot from that and became a proponent, really, of working with physicians and working with other healthcare professionals to try to understand all this effect of the inflammation on the body. And so we share a lot in common. I've trained with a lot of the people in head and neck pain, TMJ, neuromuscular dentistry. So my background was teaching dentists for many years back in the 80s and 90s. And then recently I've gotten involved in helping dentists improve their practices. And so I work hard to coach dentists and consult with dentists, as well as still working in my practice. So I'm splitting time between those two things. And then along comes a C of Redox and adds a third thing to my wish list of things to do. And I'm pretty well strapped for time, but I found time for Redox because I saw in it, from listening to Lee's story, first of all, I would not look at any other multi-level organization because I've been in 10 of them before, and I know exactly how they work. And I know that if you have a lot of competition for the same product, you get drowned out by the competition. And there's always something new coming along. So when I heard Lee's thing, there was something unique. I go, well, this is worth looking at because the story that he told was something that has never been told before. It's like the discovery of penicillin for infection.
Wow.
It's something huge. It's like the discovery of how to make insulin for the diabetic. So this Redox is beyond the norm of an option for people to jump into. It's a business opportunity that will not come again in another generation. So I look at it that way from a business standpoint, that those who are involved now and understand it now will probably be able to sit on rocking chairs for quite a while.
I love it. That's great information. Great information. So are we saying that you guys both recognize this as a new paradigm as it relates to oral health?
Yes. I'll jump in there on that one. One of the things that we dentists who are attuned to this inflammation paradigm or this worldview that we're focused on is that the mouth is a source. It's a contributing cause for what we call whole body inflammatory burden. That just means the degree of burden of inflammation throughout the whole body. For many, many years, healthcare has looked at diabetes and cardiovascular disease and brain disease and strokes and kidney disease and so on and so forth. That they're all linked somehow, and the common thread that links them is simply inflammation, that your body is on fire. There was a great cover story in Newsweek magazine in 2004 that kind of heralded this new discovery that inflammation was the source of the commonality that drove all of these diseases and was the common link. And then we showed up inside dentistry and said, well, hey, wait, gum disease and sleep apnea and through these issues, that is a source of this inflammation. And so we started to target, we started to look very closely at the contribution of, bad bugs in the mouth that cause gum disease and gingivitis, and their entry into the body, into the circulatory system through infected gums. And we said, well, we have a role to play as oral health professionals to basically, shut the door, to close the entryway for the bacteria to get into the body and to decrease that source of inflammation. We're not the only source of inflammation in the mouth, but it's a significant one. And so we've been looking at that. And again, one of the lights that went on for me at that meeting I was referencing earlier was in learning that redox signaling molecules, which are the molecule that our immune systems use in regulating the immune system, they are also what we call biocidal, meaning they kill bacteria, and most importantly, they're selective, and they kill the bad bugs and they leave the good bugs alone, which is why the physicians are just crazy over this with the use of it in the gut for gut health, is because they help to restore a healthy balance of bacteria in the gut. And in my mind, looking through my glasses that have dental written all over them, I looked at that and I said, well, wait, if that's good enough for the gut, if we're selectively killing bad bugs in the gut, why not the mouth? That's the other end of the GI tract. If these selectively take out the pathogens or the bad bacteria in the mouth, that is really a phenomenal thing. And in the world of dentistry, we don't have anything like that. I mean, it's not just dentistry, it's oral health. You walk into any drugstore, Walgreens, Rite Aid, wherever, your grocery store, and you look at all the mouthwashes, all the options that you have that are supposed to kill bugs, and they're what we call indiscriminate. They kill all the bugs, even the good bacteria. And we've got to have that healthy play of good and bad bugs. And so when I saw that, I thought, this is like Bill was saying, this is, the first thing. This is like penicillin or insulin or whatever when it dawned, because we don't have any agents that we can use in clinical dentistry or just to recommend to people using at home that doesn't harm the body. It's non-toxic, and yet it takes out the bad bugs. And so that was a big deal. That plus the idea that redox signaling molecules are neutral in terms of their pH, their acid-base balance. That means that they're safe to use in the mouth. They're not going to etch teeth or remove calcium from the teeth like you'd expect to have from soda pop, for example, or lemons, or anything like that. And so those features made this doable to be used in the mouth and to support oral health. That is a big deal when we're starting to see now papers coming out linking the bugs in the mouth to Alzheimer's and brain amyloid deposits and endothelial dysfunction, which means heart attacks and strokes and things like that. This is a really major deal. And so if we can stem it in the mouth, at the earliest stages, by using an agent such as redox signaling molecules that kill the bad bugs and at the same time support cellular health and regeneration, those two features come together to make this a real winning proposition.
Well, that's really that's amazing news. Actually amazing.
It is.
One of the things we don't want to forget about too is the accelerated wound healing that occurs in the presence of the Redox or the Redo 28. People report often that wounds heal much faster, more comfortable, and even intraoral wounds, extraoral wounds, skin is the epidermis or the mucosa, either one will heal faster under the influence of being in the presence of these molecules.
Fantastic. Both of you guys have been involved in research and extensive research, in-depth research, and education in your fields. I know that, Dr. Bill, you have traveled all over the world extensively, training folks in dentistry and oral health. Here you guys are, both of you, highly established and know how to research. You guys know where to look, right? And you know how to look. I remember in a recent recording where you were sharing that often there can be a misconception or maybe a misstep made where we don't necessarily look at research, or we've been trained to look at research in a certain way, and maybe there's a different way to look at it. How did you guys look at the research? What did you guys look at to make this real for yourselves?
For me, one of the things that for 10 years in the arena of oral systemic health, we've been plagued by the idea that there's no smoking gun. There's no absolute definitive placebo double-blind studies that conclusively prove this, and that's like the scholarly mark that is set out there, and we're actually all trained. All health professionals are trained that way to set these studies up to make these conclusive proofs. And the FDA requires that type of research in order to approve pharmaceutical medications or things where medical claims are attached. Well, we don't have any, but we have thousands and thousands and thousands of articles that show that diminished oral health or bacteria produce inflammation, and that inflammation produces all of these other diseases that we talked about. It's like an ABC. A causes B, B causes C, but we can't quite make the leap and go A to C directly. But the preponderance, just the sheer volume of research that's out there that ties all these dots together is really important. And I think that's an incredibly important story for us here, because redox dentistry, this is a new breakthrough. Redox signaling molecules are new on the scene. It's just a recent development. And it's going to be another 10 years before we have the depth and the level of these types of studies where A can jump straight to C. So in the meantime, we have to depend on the preponderance, the high quantity of research that just talks about what is it and how does it work. And fortunately for us, we can talk about structure and function claims because of the supplement nature of redox signaling molecules. Therefore, anyone that comes along and has an understanding of the basics, understands how electrons move and how health is restored through the immune system, understands, and they can put the dots together in their own mind because they know this foundational science and that it works. And I think we have to be real careful. We can't overstate the claims. We can't make unapproved claims, but we know the science well enough that we can make these statements about how it works and why it works, and then the dots connect together, and that's why the testimonials are so important in this space, is because once you see, it was like what Bill was talking about earlier with regards to these physicians having good test results, and it's like, well, they understand it well enough, they don't need a placebo, double-blind placebo type thing to prove something, because the science is so well established in this.
That's great. That's great. I remember initially, and I haven't been around, but maybe a little over halfway through the process of where we are today, meaning 5.5 years. We've been out 9 years. And there was a lot of anecdotal information, a lot of anecdotal stories that were very powerful. And we began to collect those. The company began. I know Vertus himself saved these in this treasure chest in his office. And I remember when the gene study came out a year ago, this past September. I remember that it was shared that Vertus was very excited because they were, and Vertus, right? He's so organized. So he corrugated or connected all of these anecdotal stories and managed them in a file. And when the gene study came out, he made the connections. Look, there's the connection. It's over and over again. We've made all of these connections. And how excited were you, Dr. Bill, when you looked at the gene study and saw that, wow, this is actually affecting the genes?
Yeah, the pathways that are opened up to be more efficient speak volumes to us doctors. When we see a study like this that says that the immune system, the circulatory system, the digestive system can be upregulated due to the effect of this redox molecule, it takes the lid off of possibility. That's the thing I noticed. There's nothing that would stand against the improvement of an individual, because whatever's broken gets fixed if you're working in so many pathways. The body is a complex whole, but this particular molecule works at the level of the complex whole. That's the key. It's not something that's a single specific bullet that hits one place. It hits everything. So it's a beautiful job and design. Whoever designed it did a good job.
Because we're approaching it from the inside out, right? At the deepest levels. We're talking at the cellular level, at the genetic level. And you're right. Whoever designed these bodies did right, an amazing job. And so we actually have the power in a bottle, in a stabilized form, bioidentical in every way, to the same molecules that our body produces naturally, that we can replenish and allow our bodies to heal at levels that we've never seen before, at least not seen before, especially as we get older, right? So isn't it almost like we're setting back the hands of time from a healing standpoint?
Yeah, let me jump in there on that one, because I want to follow up with what Bill was saying. We have this understanding that if you could think of a triangle, and at the top of the triangle, at the peak, we think of the body, which is made up, the next level down is made up of organs, which is then made up of tissues and cells. And within the cells, we have metabolic pathways. We have molecules moving around that are all, it's a coordinated dance, if you will, that is driven by the DNA. And several years ago, the Genome Project was finished, and we've a multi-billion-dollar industry was born of all things DNA. DNA kind of is the center place now, and it's even moving into personalized medicine, where we can get your DNA and figure out, well, what do we need to do specifically with you because of that? Redox signaling shows up one level below that, and this is, to me, what echoes what Bill was saying, because this is the epigenetic level, below or overlaying the DNA, which are the genes that have the instructions for life and health and healing and growth and so forth. Overlaying or even underneath all of that is the redox signaling. Something has to communicate, something has to signal gene expression, where genes actually turn on or turn off and do the things they were supposed to do. And these redox signaling molecules are manufactured in the body, in the mitochondria largely. Well, the problem is that from puberty on, every decade, we lose, they say, about 10% of our mitochondrial efficiency, which means we're aging, we get wrinkles, we get sicker, and we're not performing at our best. Our cells aren't as healthy. They can't withstand the stresses and the toxins and the stress and so forth of life. And so these cells will undergo what we call oxidative stress. And anytime oxidative stress kicks in at a cellular level, the genes will then turn on because of redox signaling molecules that detect that stress and start to manufacture things. And these things that they're being manufactured are proteins. And that's what the immune system is all about. And again, alluding to what Bill was saying, is that on our best day, on our most healthy day of our life, we have optimum levels of these redox signaling communications happening so that our genes can express themselves in positive ways and keep us healthy. And that's where this redox signaling breakthrough is so important, because we now can combat, or we can go upstream, if you will. We can fight the forces of aging and the ravaging natures of disease processes. We can now go back to and supplement our body's ability to function as it did perhaps on our best day. That's what's so unique about this. So when people say, well, you are your DNA, and it's like, no, you're not. You are your redox, because it's the redox that drives the gene expression.
Wow, that was a great explanation. Absolutely great. Both you guys, that was super. It kind of blows me away to think that you guys have only recently discovered this. I don't
know why it took so long. I wish it would have been 10 years ago.
But it's only been a few months, right? Isn't that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And in a few months, I can feel your conviction. I can feel the fact that and I can hear the fact that you've educated yourselves, that you get it. You guys get it. So here's the next question. So here you are. You're fairly new at wrapping your heads around all of this, but you've already taken it to the point of beginning to educate others about this. And so, would you mind sharing with us and the new people that might be here, people that haven't been around that long, what would you say? How would you describe? And I think, Lee, didn't you have some slides that you could perhaps pull up and share with us? How and you created these slides, and you have a way now of educating people about what this is, right?
I do, if I can figure out how to do it.
Okay. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a green share button. And then you should be able to highlight your slides. I see. There's the pyramid, the triangle that you were talking about.
Well, let me introduce you to my wife first.
Awesome. That's great.
This is what I was referring to earlier. Hopefully I can get that out of the way there.
Yeah.
In April 26th, this was a picture of her, and this is basically her. This is typical of her for many, many years.
And what's her name?
Her name is Stephanie. And by the way, she's happy to allow me to share her story. That's why we put this slide together.
Awesome.
She's had some very complex health history, surgeries, and debilitating illnesses. And the story, as I mentioned earlier, we were with her physician. I'm basically saying, like, she's plateaued. We kind of like, what else can we do? And he very reluctantly, kind of out of the side of his mouth, because I think he was just discovering this, said, well, give her some redox signaling molecules. And that's where I said, well, what's that? And he told me to go research it. That was about October 25 when we started. And within November 15th, just two and a half weeks later, that's what she looked like. It was just marvelous. It was very quick. And on December 1st, we went to the movies, and I looked at her and I thought, wow, I have my wife back. And so I took a picture of her while we were standing out getting popcorn. It was one of the first times she's put on makeup in a very long time. And we were walking into another store at one time, and she looked at me and she said, I'm not depressed anymore. And I said, how do you know? She goes, I am not depressed. And I know, but how would you know that? She goes, I feel joy. So I do not feel sad. I haven't felt like this in years. So anyway, this is really what grabbed my attention. And bless her heart, she's doing the best she can, but she's not 100%. Obviously, this isn't about resurrection. This is about trying to make people be as good as they can be. So anyway, that was her story. And, I just share a few slides if you wouldn't mind. This is what we shared recently at a health professional conference in Chicago. And this is just a quick flyover if you've got a moment. But this is the concept of oxidation. This is what redox is all about. It's when we have an oxidizing agent like oxygen, for example. It's a high energy molecule, and it wants to steal electrons off of other molecules. And in doing so, if it's a DNA or if it's a protein or if it's a cell membrane, it steals those electrons and destabilizes whatever it steals it from and damages them. And that's why oxidation is not a good thing on the whole in our bodies. And so we have reducing agents, so we call them antioxidants, because they have the ability to lend or to give up an electron to satisfy the thirst of the oxidizing agent. And then in turn, that antioxidant reducing agent itself becomes oxidized, and the oxidizing agent then becomes a safer reduced form of itself. Now, there's an important concept here because we have all turned to plant-based antioxidants we've known that word for a decade now, and it's a very, or more, because we want to have vitamins and antioxidants and trace minerals as a supplement. The problem with a plant-based antioxidant on the whole is that it's a 1-to-1 ratio. One antioxidant molecule can reduce one oxidizing molecule. And then I have to have a new antioxidant molecule to do the next reduction. Inside the body, we have glutathione. And when glutathione is upregulated in response to stress, back to that genetic expression, when a cell is stressed and glutathione is made, it can run this cycle over and over and over hundreds of thousands of times. It replenishes itself. And so it's much more powerful. In fact, we call it the master antioxidant in the body is glutathione. We know about common things of oxidation like metals in the yard. We know when we cut fruit, this browning of the fruit is simply oxidation, and that we can prevent that by giving it some citric acid, which has ascorbate, which is a reducing agent, and that keeps this fresh. But in the body, we have what we call biological rusting, if you will, which we call oxidative stress, which is the source of aging, the neurodegenerative, cardiovascular, inflammatory diseases. This is just basic oxidative science, redox science. This is a more busy slide, but basically the free radical oxidants at the top cause oxidative damage in the cell, which damages our mitochondria, the DNA, the cell membranes, and proteins that run around. And so, again, this might be a little over most people's heads, but this has strong implications for what goes on in the body. This is what I just mentioned earlier. This epigenetics at the bottom is about the root cause. When we get down to the root cause, we can find the root solution, and we can then rebuild everything as it goes up. Some people say, well, where are these redox signaling molecules coming from? They're made in the mitochondria from saline. And these molecules of sodium chloride and hydrogen and oxygen, which make saline, which is salt water, along with nitrogen, which is in our body, are recombined. They're fractionated by the mitochondria, and they recombine to form, upwards of a couple dozen different molecules that are the signaling molecules that our body uses to do this genetic expression, to kill bacteria, and to perform the functions of the cell machinery. In a kind of cartoonish sort of way, this is what it looks like. That's a mitochondria inside of a cell, and its job is to produce the ATP molecule that is where energy comes from. That's how muscles contract and your heart contracts and your brain stays alive. And it's out of that mitochondria there that we produce these redox signaling molecules that are the reducing agents as well as the oxidizing agents. You have to have both of them so that we can balance health in the cell and kill bacteria and activate the immune system. I'm going to skip past this one. This is a busy slide, but it's an important one because this is where redox supplements really kick in. There's two transcription factors that are activated when we have oxidative stress. One is called nuclear factor kappa beta, NFKB. It's a phase one or the initial first responder to the presence of superoxides, hydrogen peroxides, and other oxidants. And this moves to the nucleus where the DNA is that actually then initiates the response of inflammation and proteins that we call cytokines that actually do the work of our immune system. The second responder, the phase two responder, is NRF2. This also moves to the nucleus along with the NFKB, except for in the presence of redox supplements, which have the ability to go without the nuclear factor kappa beta. Why this is important is because NRF2 is a transcription factor that initiates the production of the glutathione and the other agents such as superoxide dismutase. Those are, I know I might be getting a little technical for some, but the health professionals will understand that this is the pathway that upregulates native or endogenous or self-made antioxidants that we spoke of earlier. And these can happen in the presence of redox supplements without initiating or having to have initiated the toxic inflammatory pathway of the former. So what this means is that when we have stress in our bodies, from our environment, from diet, from mental instability or whatever, when we have this diminished cellular functioning, it's going to produce the cell dysfunction. A good analogy of this is we all live in homes that produce waste. We have smoke, if you will, but when it gets out of control, the fire breaks out and we have to call in the fire department. inside the body, when everything is in balance, we have a balanced redox situation. We have reduction and oxidation in a balanced, healthy way, maintaining the health of the cell. But when we have oxidative stress or toxins enter the picture, then the triangles that you'll see there in the picture is the movement of stained transcription factors moving to the nucleus to activate them. That's our scientific proof that we are living in a toxic state. And so what this looks like is that we have the presence of glutathione and these other antioxidants, but when we have oxidative damage, there's got to be a signaling process occur that calls for materials and labor, such as vitamins and antioxidants that are in our body, to come to the scene of the fire and fix it. And as we've said before, the redox signaling is what makes the signaling occur and activates the antioxidants. And so this is an important thing, and I'm going to go back to what Dr. Bill said earlier with regards to vitamins, where there's a lot of good vitamins out there, a lot of companies that sell good vitamins. I don't hold anything against them. What I enjoy about this is I don't have to prove other people's vitamins don't work, because redox signaling is actually the means that makes them work better. It's what activates them. So whatever you're doing, whatever your diet is, whatever your exercise program is involved, whatever your health challenges are, the presence of having extra or restored redox signaling is actually what activates those fix-it crews to come in and actually do the repair that we're looking for. Looked at in a different way, and then I'll conclude with this. In the cell, we have both reductants and oxidants. Those are both there. They have to be in balance. And when they get out of balance, the one on the right shows there's more oxidants there. That's what signals the cell to do things to repair itself. And so the process here is that we got to detect it, we have to defend it, we have to repair it. But when we can't, we have to have the ability to kill the cell. This is a process scientifically called apoptosis, or cell death. It's a programmed cell suicide. Without the ability to, through redox, to be able to identify this state, we would not be able to get rid of dysfunctional or bad cells. You can think of cancer as an example of this process. So that now, when this process happens, there's also signaling that goes to the neighbor cells to subdivide. It's a process called mitosis, or cell division. They're now being asked to cell divide and replace with a healthy version of themselves what we took out through the cell death above. And if this process doesn't happen properly, we have disease and sickness show up. And so from a scientific point of view, this balance, this reductive oxidative balance, is so critical. And when it doesn't happen properly for a number of a zillion reasons, the body has to have a way of identifying it and taking action. So that might be all we really need to go through. We can stop sharing, and if you've got follow-up questions, we can go there too.
I think it's, that went really deep into the discussion of what's happening on a cellular level. I think that's fantastic. And it really helped clarify and helped me visualize what's going on, inside my body as it relates to oxidative stress, right? Free radical damage. And I really loved what you said about oxidants and how an oxidant has a 1-to-1 kill ratio, right?
Well, an antioxidant that is plant-based.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, antioxidant.
In my food, or it's a nutritional supplement. It's it's called exogenous. It's outside the body. The endogenous or native antioxidants are the glutathiones and the superoxide dismutases. Those have the ability to regenerate over and over and over, and so they're very much more powerful. In fact, one of the things that we found in our research with this is that glutathione is increased up to 800%, and superoxide dismutase, which is what takes hydrogen peroxide out of the picture and converts it to oxygen and water, has the ability to go up 500% in the presence of redox signaling molecules. That is a stunningly important observation, because it distinguishes why at a root cause, root solution level, at that epigenetic level, this is so critical for health everywhere, in every cell of the body. And it's why we see such a wide array of health improvements when redox signaling molecules are supplemented.
So that NRF2 pathway activation, which you said activates and increases the body's own production of glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and catalase, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're really doing something to affect oxidative stress, which that's what's leading to the inflammation, right?
That's what activates all those cytokines, those protein. That's what starts the DNA making the inflammatory response that's at the root of a wide number. Probably 75% of chronic health issues have inflammation as their base, and they're all preventable.
So this is no small deal. This is wouldn't you consider this a major breakthrough?
It's a huge major breakthrough. And back to Bill's point on the genetic studies earlier, this defines the mechanism of action. When you have improved insulin signaling, when you have hormone modulation, when you have endothelial improvements, which is the vascular wall, the implications of that, and it's like now you can connect the dots. It's like I don't need to tell you the specific diseases this fixes, because if you understand those things, you go, oh, now I get why this is so healthy and healthful for me.
And that sort of begins to explain why we're seeing such dramatic improvements with people, and it doesn't even seem to matter really what's going on with that.
Well, we have to, I would give a caution here, because I've been on these redox signaling molecules as long as my wife has, and I didn't have the dramatic effect. I'm kind of a healthy person. The margin from where I'm at to health is not very far. I'm pretty healthy. Well, she's not. And so some people have this false expectation, I think, and sometimes we do them a disservice by telling them you're going to have this marvelous surge of whatever. I mean, I felt a surge of energy. My mental clarity improved. Can I dare say that my poop changed? I mean, because of my gut health. I mean, there were some things, but it wasn't dramatic like my wife. And so we have to be careful, because this isn't about fixing all this stuff. We're not out there. That's not our message. Our message is that we're restoring the way the cell works. And when that happens, whatever's downstream of that will get better. Or what if I was 100% healthy already? It's like, well, this is going to keep me there. And in that regard, this is the fountain of youth. This is anti-aging. It keeps me doing, it prevents all those things. And people say, well, why would I do that? And it's like, well, because there's a dozen diseases out there you don't want to get.
Yeah, so, exactly. And preventative medicine is it's a big medicine in this country and really around the world. So
people kind of say, well, maybe you can check with my doctor first. It's like, as I've heard people say, it's like, no, the time you should check with your doctor is when you're about ready to order in the fast food line, ready to go through. That's when you should ring up your doctor. This isn't one of them. That's why flipping this from the pharmaceutical side, which is where the foundation of this started, to the supplement side allows us to be able to talk this way. It allows us to be accessible to the consumer in ways that it never would have been able to before. This is a godsend to us, I think.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Just fantastic information. Dr. Bill, let me move over to you, because I know that Einstein is someone that interests you. And I heard you share something, and I didn't quite get it maybe clearly. Would you share what you shared, I guess it was last week?
I shared a quote from Einstein that I think it was the one that said, the physician of the future will give no medicine, will interest the people in the choices of food, and would have, I don't remember exactly the whole quote, but it was basically getting away from medicines, getting away from the doctors prescribing and cutting on people, but would actually interest them in taking care of the body naturally.
I love that. Give no medicine. The physician will give no medicine. Wow. And I think we're involved with something that's going a long ways in making that happen.
There it is. You can see the quote right there, Lee.
Oh, awesome.
The care of the human frame in diet and in the cause and prevention of disease. Thomas Edison.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing quote made a long time ago that is so apropos to where we are today in our discovery of ASEA. Now, Dr. Bill, I know you've always been interested in business as well. And how do you see how this could potentially be integrated from a business standpoint into what you do as a doctor?
Years and years ago, I studied under a fellow named Bob Proctor, who went on to be quite famous with a book and a movie called The Secret. And he talks about multiple sources of income. That was something that he promoted to protect ourselves from sudden changes in our economic climate or our own personal condition. And so Lee and I have always been interested as entrepreneurial spirits in having a dental practice and having a publishing practice, having authorships, teaching. We've all been involved in serving our patients and serving the public and other dentists. We both serve other dentists by being authors. And we've always believed in multiple sources of income. And periodically we would try some of the products that would come about that looked interesting. We would try to make our way with some of the offerings in the multi-level companies. And so this was not a foreign area for either one of us. We always enjoyed the idea that if you had a good product and you told people about it, that you could make a profit. And so to me, this is the perfect product for referral by word of mouth. When I look at something that I'm interested in, I can really share it well. I can believe in it. I can share it well. The ones that I can't sell well are the ones I don't believe in. And so with the strength of the testimonials that we have, I'm a total believer that this is a valid point, and the research has backed it up. And so from a point of view of a medical doctor, a dentist, anybody in the health professions, they see it, they understand it, they can easily believe it, and then you have a lot of credibility by being a credentialed medical person. And so what I'm always doing is looking at my patients in the eye, and I'll say, you know, every now and then something comes around that really can help you, and I know something that might be beneficial. If you want to look at it, I'll be glad to send you a video, and ask them for their cell phone number. And I've got a system I put together where I have links in my notes section of my iPhone, and I can put their cell phone number in and send them the video. AmazingMolecules.net. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yeah, nice.
So
absolutely.
When I send that out to them, I get a lot of people with positive feedback. And I try to meet people where they are. If they're nutritionally challenged, if they're weight challenged, if they are got some kind of a calamity in the medical realm, I try to meet them where they are and give them hope. And I say, this is something that might help you. You should look into it. And so I do that routinely day after day. And I'll do it on Facebook. I'll do it on emails. I'll do it just talking to people in a line somewhere if I'm waiting for something at the restaurant. And so what I find is the people that are open, and people that are not open, they won't respond. So it's like you're sifting through, talking to people about what you're excited about. And as long as you stay excited, you're going to grow your business.
That's great advice. That's fantastic advice. Well, you touched on nutrients. Both you guys touched on nutrients. And And I know ASEA is a company dedicated to cellular health. And I know that the flagship product that they first discovered, right, and ultimately stabilized was this redox signaling molecules. But since then, they have now produced a gel that also contains the molecules in a concentrated strength. They have produced like a super serum, which is an even greater concentration. And they have some other complementary items to help with preparing the skin for the molecules, and then also moisturizing the skin after the molecules. And recently, this past September, they released some new nutraceuticals. What are your guys' feelings about the nutraceutical line and how that might complete the package, right? The cellular package, if you will?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the redox signaling molecule's mechanism of action is to activate antioxidants. Well, if you don't have antioxidants available to activate, you've got a problem. And this isn't a 0-100. It's not you have none or you have 100. We all have, it's a continuum. And the thing I like about the formulations that you're presenting is that the research behind them, the quality and the sourcing of those provide the whole food. They're not synthetic. You know, it's a whole food presentation. Well, that's getting a real parallel to what the body wants. I mean, if we could back up a dump truck of leafy greens and all these natural phytonutrients that we're supposed to be eating a colorful diet. If we could do that every day, maybe like we did millennia ago, I don't know. But if we could do that, we'd be satisfied. But that's not a practicality today. And so, but the blending of the strategy of being able to activate as well as to have the fix-it guys show up, with the labor and the materials to be able to do what it is they need to do the repair and the replace. That's a wonderful marriage. I think it's a very insightful addition to this. As far as the skin stuff is concerned, I'm already beautiful. I don't know that I need anything more to help me with that regard. But I can tell you that I spray this stuff in my face and my eyes. I've got sores, chronic sores on spots of my body that are now under control, and I love it.
That's great. Dr. Bill, your thoughts?
Yeah, Lee, you got that beautiful face, that glowing skin. I think that's from all the cloud cover that's in Washington.
Yeah.
I had some of my best results from the Renew 28 from some of the people that joined us. One of my people that joined us recently is a naturopath and a nurse practitioner. And she worked in the emergency room for, 20 years and she knows medicine. She works with all the beauty products, Botox and Restylane and Carboxy, and does a lot of things to beautify skin. And so I gave her a sample of the Renew 28. And in 2 weeks, she came back and said, I want to be part of this. That was the thing that sold her on joining us, because she got more out of that than anything she knew from her professional experience. I mean, she's doing this for a living, making people beautiful, and nothing she could do did as much as the Renew 28 for her own skin. So she's a believer. It got rid of all kind of lichen planus and things that were on her chest, she said. I don't know what she had on her chest, but she told me that's what it was. So it was some rash on her chest that went away. And so I trust that she knows what she's talking about.
Wow.
Now, another person drank the liquid and their digestive problems went away in just 2 weeks. She couldn't eat anything strange. She had no ability to eat the fiery foods, you might call it. And greasy foods would just dissatisfy her bowels. She would have IBS. So 2 weeks, she was totally able to eat everything that's grown and cooked in New Orleans. Creole food was easy. She went down and had a great visit. So I'm saying, if these two people that just joined our business as associates got that kind of response, then I can't imagine anybody not wanting to, be a part of it. So it's your excitement and belief that really draws people in. And I see it in these individuals, and it makes me want to go out and tell somebody else that they too could possibly get over some of these things that are bothering them so profoundly.
That's so true. And I think that's the best part for me, and probably for all of us that are on tonight, is, we get paid so much in goosebumps, and so often, we get the other part too, which is awesome. And probably some of the best in the industry as far as the money goes. But I'll tell you, the goosebump part of it is a really big deal for me. That's for sure. Well, guys, I know we're getting close to the end of our time. Dr. Bill, did you want to say something?
I just was going to point out, I'm looking forward to these actinic keratosis on my hand to be finally gone. I go to the dermatologist every 6 months to get these things taken off so they don't turn into basal cell carcinomas and things. And, I've got several of them that are gone after 2 months, and I'm just going to wait till the 6-month checkup comes and see what they tell me if they can find them. I'm going to just look in her eyes and see if she found them again, because I know she knows where they are. If they're gone, that'll be a good story.
That'll be a great story. Absolutely great story. You guys, I love the part where I get to say the disclaimer, which is that per the FDA, right, only drugs can claim to cure, prevent, or treat any condition or disease. But I love being able to say that what we're providing people is the opportunity to have their bodies heal themselves. And that, to me, goes so far beyond medicine and the understanding of pharmaceuticals that I think it's as good as it gets. I think in the world, if we said, what if we could have sat back years and years ago, right, and imagined, and especially you guys being doctors, imagine what if we could create the perfect scenario to help the world related to health. But we also know it's related to, what's for athletes and skin. We talked about skin. But if we could create the perfect invention, if you will, wouldn't you guys say we found it? This is it?
That's pretty darn close.
When Lee first showed this to me and I read about it and listened to the video on Amazing Molecules, I said, Lee, this is the God molecule. This is created for a purpose. And the purpose is to make what's created work even better.
That's a great way to end, you guys. It's been such an honor to have you guys here. And I know you're brand new, and I know we're going to see each other on the ASEA Highway. If not, in a little while, we'll probably see you at convention next year in Las Vegas. So, gentlemen, thank you for taking time out of your afternoon to be with us and to share, Dr. Lee, the personal story about your amazing, beautiful wife and her improvements. We wish her the very, very best. And I know pretty soon you're going to be able to climb walls and jump over buildings, and you'll realize for yourself and just how great this is. And Dr. Bill, thanks for being with us. I know you guys are going to go out there and change the world.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both. This was amazing. For once, I don't have any questions. Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and I want to thank Lee for inviting me into this. One thing that the person that joins should always be thankful for is the one who invited them. Change their life. It'll change their life. It always seems that that's the most important thing, is the lives you change when you invite people into things like this.
I'm honored. Thank you. I'm so glad you did. There's one thing about this, and that is there's a special light that is lit above a lot of us. And you can look around, and when people get it, that light goes on, and that's something that's easy to share.